Judge, do you think it's really ethical and moral for you to actually commercialize and monetize these real people's hardships and what they face through these horrendous acts? So in today's speech, in my speech today, I would like to firstly give definitions about the motion, second, frame this debate, thirdly, give how we're going to actually implement this ban, and fourth, give stakeholders. Furthermore, I'd like to give our first argument, which is about how we're going to protect these victims, and secondly, how we're going to protect the audiences. Moving on straight on to definitions. So what does commercial media mean? Commercial media means that there's going to be for-profit entertainment products, for example, like films, like series of stories, and like these other like podcasts and things that are made over dramatically to earn money and to earn as much money as possible. We would like to define real criminals as actual living or historical individuals convicted of or actually known to actually have committing illegal acts. So moving on to framing. Nobody should actually get rich because just by turning this person's worst experience into just entertainment, right? So true crime entertainment prioritizes profit over actual truth. So we believe that this is highly immoral. So we would like to draw the line of commercializing as making things exaggerated, dramatizations, and false information made to appeal to more people using immoral strategies. So why is it justified for the government to ban this thing? Because it's the people basically victims that are harmed due to this, and the audiences are misled into over-exaggerated and false info. So it does give a harm to the general society, and that's why we should ban it in today's world. So in our model, how are we going to implement this? We're going to talk about we're going to actually have a law where we should not actually use tragedies to earn money. So we're not going to allow over-exaggeration, lies, and dramatization in movies or like these films made to actually inform the public about these people. Moving on to our first argument about how we're going to actually protect the people's victims. So turning real crimes for profit entertainment actually monetizes the suffering of the suffering of the victims. So if a victim is the star of this movie and they are the perspective and they show what they faced and what they went through, then they're probably never going to ask for permission and never compensated. Because of this goal of commercialization, the media industry actually will want to give the most dramatic, over-affected, and most exaggerated, because that's what audiences want. They want something that can be fun and more enticing. So think about seeing your loved ones on death and their pain into a global trend and something that everybody can see and everybody enjoys. It's not very fair for these victims and the victims' close ones because they have to see how much they suffer. But not only that, the whole world now knows about their suffering and is making not a big deal out of it, but more of something to make money. Moving on to a second argument about how this is going to protect the audiences and the social society as a whole. So status quo actually turns harmful criminals into a star. So most of these harmful criminals are represented with handsome actors, pretty actors, and somebody who is appealing to the general public. So what is this going to have effect on these people? People are going to see somebody committing a heinous act, and that actually guarantees us that they will get fame by a movie. So this can create a world where being a criminal and doing heinous acts actually becomes a path to becoming a celebrity and becoming a publicly known figure. Because the movies are going to represent them as not as bad, because they're going to be very handsome, charismatic, and stars to earn more money, we believe that the commercialization incentive is the problem in this debate. So moving on to quickly burdens. So we're going to prove to you in our speech and further on about how we're going to actually show that these victims and surviving families are going to be protected. Proud to propose.
The setup is that it's likely that the media incentive is profit. So they will choose one story and add extra points that is make it passionate and dramatic. This means that the movie is not solely about one person, it's about many of similar cases that have happened in the past. And one of the most representative criminal is the example. Therefore, the story does not solely criticize one victim and one criminal, it spreads the story of many people pull into one movie. Also, it is likely that the media will make a movie after a long time the victim and the criminal is dead or is erased from media. Because when they are alive, there will be lots of controversies and people who still support them. So to avoid critics and conflict, the media is likely to make a movie after some time. Our side supports not banning these kind of movies at all, and letting people make sure and watch any kinds of movie they want. If we prove that banning these kinds of movies is not justified and the movies don't harm society, then we will win the debate. Firstly, so for the rebuttals, he talks about protecting victims and audiences. They are assuming that the media companies are going to over exaggerate the crime that happened into something that is hilarious. Well, we can see that maybe these companies are at some at some more things to the media to make it more popular. However, we do not think that these companies will make it hilarious because obviously they will have a meaning to
You
give
know
to the
why?
people about how criminals will be actually are bad and how people actually resonate to these people. Yes, I'll take your POI.
So basically, if you change the story or alter the story to make it more mass appealing, isn't that basically altering the victim story? And would the victim not like this at all?
Okay, the company has the incentive to make more people resonate to this criminal and to get the audiences to have actually good meaning. We do not think that the companies will actually make this a particular case as something that is really different from the historical actual happening because they will actually want to spread some meanings and lessons about what has actually happened. They will not try to like over exaggerate to make people not resonate to the actual happening, and this also rebuts to their second argument about protecting audiences. Moving on to our first argument, we think that our site enables free expression. Why would the media conglomerates try to make this media? They will want to give the viewers a meaning of their own, and their biggest incentive is to make pieces that gives fulfillment to the people and give important messages in life. Because this actually leads to good profit and more people trying to opting into these kind of media. Then why is the free expression of media important? There could be certain companies that want to deliver different messages than the lessons in the past. They could be willing to make people learn from the past, resonate with true feelings, and get a broader vision of the society. The fact that the industries are making media based on real crimes violates their rights to make people feel their media. Why is it principally wrong for the government to censor media? The media has a right to give people the materials that they believe that would be beneficial throughout the society. They will create based on their best incentive to make sure more people are satisfied. However, if the government starts to regulate the media that they make, it gives away much more power to the government too. This innately makes the government censor all the media that they found harming under the mask that they care about consent and victims. They could most likely censor even government criticizing media if many people learn lessons to them. Why do our side exclusively enable free expression? Media conglomerates are free to make criminal-related crimes, and they will be able to cause discourse and resonation, which they aim for. Second argument is that it exposes injustice and protects future victims. What will the movie shows mainly be about? Most likely they will be about violent crimes or government's police failure, and because this is public attention and feels through. So what impacts do we bring? There will be there will be more discourses. There will be more discourse about future crimes and how to stop these types of crimes, and what regulations should be brought for preventing crime like this. Then B, there will be more talk in the media of crime like this. There will be media attention. There will be media presence. Because the company tries to make more and more people opt into their media, they will make the story as much as the criminal, they will try to spread the message that criminal is very bad so that more people will try to relate to these media too. Therefore, I'm so proud to propose.
So, Judge, moving on to some very key rebuttals in this debate, we believe that the government is not banning or censoring media, but it is banning exaggerated stories that are probably not accurate to this world. We believe that these crimes might not be accurate, or it is not it is too graphic for the public to see. This means that we will basically we will not be showing the time period or like the inaccurate information, and that this should not be shown to the public. We believe that these things will make the story seem less intense or less or make the criminals less incriminating and have evidence for other for opposite for people supporting the criminal and opposing the victim, saying that what they saw, what they experienced was not true. Some key and the second the some key extensions to the PM. So basically our first argument was about how like profiting from like real suffering is really wrong and it is not a good idea and it is immoral. We strongly believe that basically a victim is basically should not be experiencing the crimes over again. And basically what we would rather want to see are actual true stories made by the victims that are not exaggerated and are not profit driven. We will want more non-profit and actual news stories from either like credible news sources like the BBC or CNN. We want more of those, but less of something like a Netflix making new TV series or a new movie about a criminal making like a murder or like a murder or a serial killer. We would like to see more of these kind of nonprofit and actual truth actual criminals giving truth rather than these kinds of fake exaggerated stories. Yes.
Even if like the victim's pain increase, doesn't we don't we still win on scale because we still prevent the many numerous people who actually get the crime in the future?
Oh, that doesn't really make sense because like this like I don't really understand your POI because there's not really like a scale that you guys win by. It is the crime that you prevent is there will probably be more crime because there will be a lot more copycats after watching like a TV show. Maybe like a teenager might be doing exactly the same thing that a criminal might have done. It's really not likely to happen for what you're saying for it to happen. So moving on to the third and last argument, a ban removes the making of uh a ban removes the making of like new crime celebrities rather than the truth. We believe that the actual winners of these like documentaries and movies are not the victims, nor like the true justice that has been given to the criminals, but the actual winners are the criminals and movie studios that profit from these horrific actions. This basically allows the criminal to become new celebrities, like the PM has said. The truth is not being shown in these profitable documentaries and movies. This ban will be removing people from experiencing exaggerated stories and the victims being reminded of horrific events that they have basically seen before. We believe that these crime celebrities will become more because people will be talking about these criminals more and more that this is naturally inevitable to happen. And if the victim is from shown on this documentary or movie in being portrayed, then we will see that they will also become like a celebrity, but the victim will be known as the celebrity who was the victim in this sort of accident, not the one in not being an actual like hero or like a person who survived some horrific accident. A crime should basically never become entertainment. And when companies turn real criminals into marketable like characters, they often overshadow the victims and the actual problems. As a result, very proud close.
Judge, before I start with my riddles, I'll first give you a few key points why our side is actually principally justified. So A, the victims that the movies portray are most likely dead or already the pain went away a long time ago. This is because A, movie studios take these kind of movies or dramas or shows, they take very long time to actually make, so therefore already like few years would have passed. And B, also the movie studios don't want to have like too much controversy regarding their movie or shows because then not many people will want to watch it and the reputation of the movie studio too will actually decrease. So therefore it most likely be a crime long time ago. So therefore these kind of there when there's the victims with the victim of this kind of movie like exaggeration is actually gone. I don't get why this can be justified. And B, even if there's so much like misinformation and there's so much like fantasy and like false information inside the movie, then I don't get what is the line between real stories and real just fake movies and historical crimes, right? So it is ambiguous in the first place. So therefore, actually, in their side, even if they ban it, they don't have a clear definition of what actually a historical crime means. If there's so many like stories so changed and so exaggerated, then what can we call historical crime movies and what can we call just crime movies, right? The government, then what ends up happening is, like the PM said, government just starts restricting everything that just seems like too exaggerated and too bad for the victims, and this is actually bad for the future, right? And see, the PM has said before, our side wins on scale, but scale because in the future, more people can be aware of these kind of crimes, and also these like victims with like similar experiences can actually share their experiences and get resonated and validated. So therefore we win on scale, but however, I think that we also win on the actual magnitude of the pain. So getting secondly hurt from emotionally from a crime, one person getting secondly hurt emotionally from a crime 10 years ago, decades ago, and versus not experiencing the crime at all is very, very different, right? Yes.
So you guys are going to value these people's able to know about these fabricated and already over dramatized like news over these people getting hurt because of their past traumatic effects.
Okay, so first of all, I think that the fact that they're over dramatized, it actually works better on our side, because now people know how actually more how dangerous it is, and and also there will also be a lot of discourse about how we should prevent these crimes and what regulations should be made for these crimes, especially if they're exaggerated and if this kind of movie goes viral. And also they also talked about how these kind of criminals will be glorified, but I think this is not true. The actors inside the movie may be handsome and charming, but the actions and the doom of the criminal will not. People will focus more on the actual scenes, right? And the movie studios have the incentive to make the criminal go to jail or have a really bad future, because that's when people actually feel the thrill and actually feel happy when they're watching the movie. And also, I'll tell you a few reasons why this kind of movie won't be exaggerated and will not be too hurt to the victims, right? The victims will of course be calling out to the movie studio if the movies are actually exaggerated. Of course, if they're that emotionally hurt, of course they'll call out this movie studio. And also, this kind of thing is likely to go viral because there's a lot of media attention to those kind of movie studios to actually criticize this. The media has active intent to criticize these big movie studios, and if they get the victim to maybe shame to call out these kind of things, people will start getting interest and the real case if the movie actually goes famous, right? So people will start looking up the case and, hey, this is different. The criminal wasn't like that. This movie was way too exaggerated. This is way too bad for the victim. People start calling out this, and again, since the media has active intention to criticize these kind of movie studios, these kind of movie studios will now, in the future, since there's more discourse in that society, now this kind of movie studios will change into actually making these kind of movies less exaggerated. And see, already most of the public in the stands where most of the criminals, just a normal public usually says, hey, we should make regulations to make criminals more punished more severely. Most citizens think like that. So therefore, I think that actually when these kind of movies actually go viral and they actually get famous, I think that this kind of stance will be even stronger. So therefore, I'm so proud to propose.
Judge, in today's debate, I'm going to do two things. First, do some rebuttals, and second, present the clash identified in this debate. Now, I'd like to first start off with my rebuttals. Judge, side opposition has talked about how it gives awareness to the people when these movies become famous. However, Judge, first point here, if the goal is to give awareness, you can use news reports, school lessons, etc., to do it instead of turning crime entertainment, right? Judge, what does this mean? This means that since we have alternative, the extra harm is unnecessary. Now, let's do some meta debating here. Side opposition claims that they will be able to regulate and create future policies that actually eliminate these crimes after the movie. However, Judge, do you think this is likely in the first place? No, the government already has the info, even if this crime is not turned into entertainment. However, Judge, let's be charitable and let's just say it does eliminate and it does create awareness to the society. However, Judge, the same thing can happen in all sides due to the alternatives as listed before. For example, school news reports, school lessons, and all of those things, right? And therefore, this argument is a deadlock and does not stand at all. Side opposition has also talked about we win on scale since we prevent future crimes. Now, Judge, as mentioned before in my rebuttal, Judge, they continue to talk about the future's cause will be eliminated. Judge, does the citizens create the policies? No, the government is the one who actually creates the policies and eliminate future crimes and all of those things, right? Judge, even if these like crimes are not turned into entertainment and not shown to the public, that like and through media, the government already knows the situation and knows how severe it is if it's like a severe degree of crime and all of those things. Side opposition has also talked about how the movie would not be exaggerated. Sure, I mean, like, yeah, the movie would not be exaggerated. Like, sure, why not? But judge, we need to keep note that the harm still stays the same, even if the movies are not exaggerated, right? And therefore, their claim does not stand. And I would like to move on to the clashes identified in this debate, which is first, what does the commercial media actually do? In the commercial media, I specifically mean the ones who like turn criminals into like entertainment and all of those things, right? Now, I'd like to first identify the incentives of the entertainment industry. But before I move on, I'd like to take the POI. Since it seems like
So if the government knows that there are crimes, does it mean that there's no need for the people to know and validate about it?
now, as mentioned before, there's a lot of alternatives that can actually do this without creating the harm that the media creates. I would appreciate it if you listen to my rebuttals. To continue, I would like to first identify the incentives of the entertainment industry, right? Judge, the incentive of the entertainment industry is to keep people interested. Now, Judge, this means that the movie would naturally spend more time on like portraying the main character, aka the criminal, more interesting. Judge, this also means that the movie will spend more time on the criminal over the victims. Judge, this is very important because first, since crime becomes a source of entertainment, the society would view it less serious due to the fact that the people consume these as entertainment, not like the real tragedy and all of those things, right? Second point here, the victims and families are forced to actually remember those tragic moments of their life, even if they don't see the movie. If the movie becomes famous, if it becomes viral, they'll eventually listen about it. Just also, even if these crimes are portrayed as even if like these crimes are like portrayed towards the victims and all of those things, the harm still stays the same. And even if these actually give the awarenesses, sometimes there's no reason for us to actually risk the harms so that we can give awareness to people, since we already have good enough alternatives that actually give good enough awarenesses to the people, right? And therefore this class clearly comes to the proposition, and this is why I'm proud to propose. Thank you.
So I think that there's no solvency from the government. They are saying that victims should be isolated. Their stories are not shared. They're not letting them have the freedom to share their stories and rely on audiences to give them validation and support. So moving on to our first clash, who supports the vulnerable stakeholders? So I think both sides agree that vulnerable stakeholders are probably going to be the criminals and the victims of a crime. So first, do we actually need the consent of the victims and the criminals? So I don't think this is very likely because A, the facts of a crime are already public. The news of the facts of a crime are already public and it's already in the news and people already know about it. The crimes that happen in society is open for anyone to view. I don't really know why in their world this would be very secretive. B, I think victims can feel actually more validation and support in our world because unlike their world, we are giving them a chance to show their own stories. In their world, they'll feel isolated, feel like nobody actually knows whether they are hurt or not. At least in our world, they expect kind of validation from the online audiences and people who actually say, "Oh, you were hurt. We feel sorry for you." And also even if you say that there's some kind of hurt to these like criminals, we think that people already have a bad image of these criminals. And actually, we actually help these victims and criminals more because oftentimes people have a misunderstanding of the story.
Here, what, ma'am?
They know whether the story is true or not, and therefore they always rely on uncertain facts. So when like these kind of documents or movies are made about these criminals, it sets the facts straight and let these people's story and let the people actually know what the true story is. Even if the consent matters and they didn't consent, we already told you that it's probably likely that the media will like release the movie a long time after they die because they don't want to have any controversy about their movie because their incentive is about profit. And I'm also not really sure why you could actually know it's. I'm not really sure why the victims will actually know if it's them in the story because the name changes, the story changes dramatically, and also these are the story of many people, not just criticizing one person in the status quo. So two, is exaggerating actually good? A, I think we actually could trade off the glorification if we can get the benefits. So the benefits of society, learning from mistakes, and the validation to the victim. B, even if you say that exaggerating is really bad, we think if it's so bad to the extent where it's very wrong, we think that people won't believe it because they know it's just a movie, and therefore the movies will exaggerate and people know that. Three, It's banning
Yo,
it
ma'am.
Hey, government says that censoring some movies, the government says that they will censor some movies that are bad. So what exactly are these some movies that they will ban? When the government decides what is true or not, the democracy of free speech collapses. B, giving government this power makes them justify other things that they will ban. And for example, they could just decide to ban other
Yo,
things,
ma'am.
the other genders movies. See, I'm not really sure why these crime movies are so exclusive compared to other documentary movies that also give exaggerations and like also use other people's pain as to make profit. So moving on to the second clash, I want to talk about who actually prevents future crime. So what happens when people actually watch these movies? We think there will be a lot of controversies and discourse, and therefore there will be a lot of media attention.
Yo, ma'am, this is your last chance.
They will get online conversation. They will help the victim and in the future they will help similar crime cases as the victim in the movie. Second, we think there will be a lot of better future policies, because if there's an unjustified punishment to the criminal or the victim has the crisis of the victim is very bad, then movies tell people to think again. They tell people to pick future policies that concern these kind of rehabilitation of criminals or to help the victims. Three, even if we say that in our worst case, people don't believe anything in the movies and we don't get the benefits, we think that there's still a benefit of raising awareness to the crime. Because when people see like scary crime movies, they feel emotions and they're aware of future crimes, and this means the society overall becomes really aware. So when you compare the victim like feeling sad to the future society getting better, I think the victim wants the future to be better to people who have the same case as them. So we win this clash. So four, why is movies better than other alternatives like to raise awareness like news like they say? So we think that movies are very exclusive because they're passionate, emotional, and they attract a lot of bigger audiences. However, the news on their side is very biased and uncertain. If they use the news in their side, it's very worse because people believe uncertain things. But at least people in our world rely on movies, and therefore they actually know whether this is true or not, and they can like judge whether these kind of facts are true or wrong.
Judge, you cannot understand crime by refusing to look at it, and you cannot fight harm by handing the state a censorship pain. Do you believe that the censorship will make people protected? Or do you believe awareness and discourse can actually help the victims? Today's debate comes down to two main issues. Firstly, who helps the victims more? We provide media that has more presence in the society. Government says that victims will not like their experiences to be laughed at by society. We kept saying that the news or schools papers have no impact on moving the people's minds and their emotions at all. This is not a deadlock. This is what makes our side much more beneficial on actually helping the victims' experiences to the people so that they know why the crime is so harmful. The government side never ever issue an actual policy that they can use instead of our media. Secondly, who respects the conglomerates the most? Judge, the media companies don't always rely on money. They want more people to resonate to their media and help other people. The government makes an atmosphere when the government has the censors, the abilities to censor these companies that has who has the principal rights to make what they want to make and to express what they freely want to express. So their side does not respect the conglomerates that as much as ours do. Judicious judge, the victims want attention and consolation from the public to vent on their criminals together. They want more and more people knowing about how the bad things that the criminals cause them is bad. They want more and more people consoling them, saying that it's okay, and saying that the criminals are the ones who should be disappeared in society. They don't want their heart-wrenching experiences to be unknown to the society through news which everyone does not pay attention to. Therefore, we believe that we protect the victims much more and also protect the media conglomerates as well. Thank you for listening.
Judge, before I go into my speech, where I will explain the two main issues of this debate, firstly, why we win based on what the incentive of these filmmakers to create this commercialized video is, and secondly, why is it justified for the government to actually act? Firstly, there was no real engagement from their side about how we should protect these victims. They of course talked about it, but they didn't really address why the victim suffering actually becoming someone else's maybe a way of profiting is actually acceptable, because it actually is not, and it's objectively immoral for you to take another person's suffering and actually make that. They talked about how it's not very going to be it's not that harmful, they're not going to feel that bad, but it's very unlikely because these people actually experience this. The big question here in this debate is that does the right to make money from a story actually override the right of real people to not have to suffer, their suffering actually turned into a story where the story is altered and made optimal for making profits instead of actually telling the truth and like gaining attention so that they actually like are given like actual empathy and whatnot, like they said. So, like the clearest way why we win this debate is because what does a journalist want when they cover a real crime? They want to get the facts right? But then because their reputation stands on like accuracy. If they give false info, their reputation is probably going to go down. So what does a commercial studio want? They want as many people as possible to watch and like keep watching. So their revenue actually depends on like how fun it is and how like it's actually engaging and how much people like it. So if it's actually boring, they're going to probably change it so that people are more engaged and people want to watch it more. This is why these people are going to over-exaggerate and over-dramatize. Secondly, why should the government act? It's actually justified for the government to act because the government already restricts actual like speech like when it actually causes harms. So it's kind of like how we ban false advertising, as you restrict these people from sharing bad information and false information that is dramatized, like I said in the previous issue. Because of that, we take this debate home.